myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say to...
Good morning, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is those were the days, and what season are you taking us back to today, George?
1966-67, Steve. Second year after promotion.
Great stuff, mate. Okay, over to you, George.
Right. As always with Newcastle United, there's as much happening off the field as there is on the field. And this is World Cup year, and by now everybody realises we're not going to get any World Cup games. And the public row, the row between the club and the council over that, has now become quite nasty and very public. So it's all over the papers. They even have a TV debate where the leader of the council debates the issue with the directors. Well, who do the directors send? But William McKeague, the well-known lawyer who's used to having courtroom battles, so he makes mincemeat of the council on television. But that doesn't satisfy the fans. The fans are still angry that this is allowed to fester. But also, they now know that the council have intentions to try and persuade or force Newcastle into a new ground, which is a multi-purpose stadium and not just a football stadium, and that they're only prepared to give give Newcastle a 5-year lease, which is absolute rubbish, and they want 2 directors on the board of directors of Newcastle United. Well, none of that goes down with Newcastle United, and I have to say, not all of it goes down well with the fans. To some extent, Newcastle United calls their bluff, and they've got this land up at Sandy Lane, 35 acres, and so they submit plans for a brand new purpose-built ground out at Sandy Lane. And for the first time in this argument, the freemen who own the place, own the property, own the land anyway, have something to say about it. And all they say is, we would be disappointed to see Newcastle United move out of the city. And that's enough to kick the council up the backside and say, well, all right, let's sit down and have a talk about what we're going to do with this. And at long last, to start talking sensibly about how to redevelop St. James's Park as a football ground. They still get their own way in a sense. The ground rent was up to about 5 times where it was beforehand. But Newcastle United were prepared to accept that and go forward. So we now at least got a basis for moving forward. But the angst it leaves in the city and amongst supporters is there to be holding, especially once you start to go to the matches. So here we are, start of 66-67. What's happening in the rest of the world? Well, as I usually do, if you're interested in music, top 4 out of the top 10. Wild Thing by the Trogs. All or Nothing by the Small Faces. Sunshine Superman by Donovan. And 8 Miles High by the Byrds. Now, that's a completely different top 10 to what we've had so far, because it's been a competition between the Beatles and the Stones and Elvis Presley up till now. Well, we've got some new music peeping in, and that's quite good for everybody, I think. And in terms of films, if you go to the cinema, you could go and see The Bible, Hawaii, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, The Sand Pebbles, The Man for All Seasons, Lieutenant Robinson Crusoe, USN, The Russians Are Coming, Grand Prix, The Professionals, and Alfie. Quite a range in that 10. I've got to admit, most of them I've seen over the years, if not straight away. So that's where we were in terms of the wider world. And in terms of football, well, we set off with Joe Harvey really anxious about where the goals are coming from. And he's still chasing either Wyn Davis from Bolton or Alan Davis from Norwich City as his centre forward. He likes those 2 centre forwards. But he's struggling to persuade Wyn to come to Newcastle at this moment. But he doesn't let go. He keeps pursuing it. As he'll say as we go on, he eventually wins the battle. So we'll start the season, and Now that's the squad. Now I deliberately used that picture because it's taken out of the handbook of the supporters club, which was now getting well developed, 3,000 members by now, and so I took that, and then there's the official handbook, and it was nice to see, and they sometimes have parts to play in terms of playing. That's some of the commentary about how they got where they were, and I like the advert Henry Osborne because when I started my apprenticeship, if ever we wanted any little tools or a little toolbox, anything like, we used to go to Henry Osborne in the big market and buy them there. And I thought that memory brought back some happy memories for me, that picture. So quite nice. Anyway, we start with the football. And guess what, Steve? 3 friendlies at the beginning of the season.
Well, they're all right at the start of the season,
yeah,
George.
Yeah. The one against the Danish team, I think there might be a programme there for this one. I don't know.
Aalborg.
Yes, that's it, Aalborg. And we seem to have a good relationship with these. And they always play this challenge match. And the money's going to a medical charity, which is working in both countries, which is quite nice. Then there's 2 games against Carlisle, one at home. There's the first one, and one away. And we drew 1-1 with Aalborg, 2-2 with Carlisle at home, and then we, would you believe, lose 4-2 to Carlisle at Brunton Park, which is not a good start to the season, in my opinion, but never mind. However, we get into the season proper, and our first proper match is Aston Villa. There should be a programme for Aston Villa, I think, Steve. And we, people on, I know from the Gallagher corner, nobody was terribly thrilled that would be our first game because we had a feeling it would be a difficult one.
And can I just point out before you go into the game, now when I looked at this programme, are Villa being cheapskates here and using one programme for 2 games in a week? Because at the bottom it's got Sheffield Wednesday.
No, I think that's advertised the next game.
Right, okay, because it's very unclear. And
yes,
I was thinking, are they saving money here and selling a programme for 2 games?
No, that's advertising what's coming next, I think.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So we go to Villa, and as was predicted, it was a difficult game, but lo and behold, we came out with a draw, with a 1-1 draw, with Ron McGarry scoring our goal and Chatterley at the Villa centre forward scoring theirs, and 18,000 at the game. And, everybody's thinking, well, that's not a bad start. Our first team for that match was Marshall, Craig, Clark, and it'll get familiar because Harvey's very, very loyal to the teams he picks. Clark, Burton, Thompson, Eiley, Robson, Kettleborough, McGarry, Hilly, and Suddick. And that's going to be the team for a lot of this particular season. Villa haven't changed much since the previous year. The only big change for them was they'd got a new centre forward called Tony Haitley, what we call in those days a bustling centre forward, a big bloke who could head the ball. But anyway, we came away with 1-1, and everybody thought, well, that's a better start than we hoped for. So the next game was another away game. I think the fixtures choosers are always unkind in Newcastle, I think. The first 2 games away from home. But never mind. The next one's an away game at Sheffield United. And so everybody thinks, well, is there a possibility that we get something out of this? And of course we do. We get a 1-0 win with Ron McGarry scoring a goal from the penalty spot for us, and we have the same team out. One change: left back Clark was injured, and Ronnie Guthrie came in. But otherwise, it was the same team as played in the first match. Sheffield United had 1 or 2 up-and-coming stars who made their name much later on, but were quite dangerous. The centre forward forward, big blonde lad called Alan Birchinall, who had a good career and played for England a few times. And then the midfielder, attacking midfielder called Alan Woodward, another big lad who used to make life difficult for us. And at centre forward, of course, they had their old-timer Mick Jones that they got from Leeds United. So we've got two more points into the bag, and everybody's thinking feeling quite happy about 3 points after 2 games. Not happy. So the next game we go home. We face Tottenham at home, and everybody thinks, well, this is going to be difficult. Well, it was difficult. Tottenham beat us 2-0. I remember being at this game, and they could have made it a lot more than 2. And they scored. Mackay and Robertson scored for Tottenham, and it was fairly straightforward for them. 35,700 at the game, which shows that there was after having a win and a draw away from home, there was a little bit of optimism in the crowd. So we got 37,000 in the crowd. Team, well, we've got the same team except that Ron Guthrie's now dropped out of left back, and George Dalton comes into the team at left back. As you've known, Steve George Dalton's an old long-time friend of mine. We played in the same school teams and played for the county together. So it was great for me to see George getting his chance in the first team. But otherwise, same team. Marshall, Craig, Dalton, Burton, Thompson, Moncur, Robson, Kettleborough, Ron McGarry, Dave Hilly, and Alan Suddick. I've got to say about Keith Kettleborough, rather. When Harvey bought him and sold Stan Anderson, people in the crowd, the sort of reaction was, Keith who? And just Harvey justified it, because Kettleborough really did keep up last season. He certainly inspired the team to get enough points to stay in the division. Tottenham, all stars as usual. Pat Jennings in goal, who's well known. Cyril Knowles at fullback. Alan Mullery, who became a manager. Terry Venables, of course, who became a manager. Dave Mackay, who took Derby to the heights with Brian Clough, and Alan Gilzine, a Scottish forward who caused England a lot of trouble, and Cliff Jones on the left wing from Wales, who was a real speed star. So we get beat 2-0 batter from Tottenham, and although it's not a surprise, it's a disappointment to be losing our first game at home. So we look forward to the next one, which is Sheffield United, and we're hoping, because Sheffield are, in terms of where we are, and the forecasters, the pundits, Sheffield are about where we are. So we're hoping at least to get something out of this one. And we do. The team wins 1-0 with an old goal from Wagstaff, one of their defenders. It was actually panic more than anything, because Ron McGarry was breathing down his neck and would have put it in anyway, but Wagstaff took a swipe at it, and well, it just went the wrong way, and for us, thank goodness, it went in the back of the net. So we got a 1-0 win of Sheffield, and 2 solid points to keep it going. The team's almost back to where we started, with Frank Clark now back at left back, and the rest is red. Suddick, Bennett, Gary Hilly, and Tommy Knox on the left wing, which is where we came in. We're now Sheffield United. As I say, had Nick Jones and Alan Woodward and Birchnall in their ranks, which kept them going for a while. The next game we go to is an away game at Manchester United, and I think there should be a programme for Manchester United, Steve. Yeah, it's always going to be a tough game, but on the other hand, teams, even when we've not been playing well, have seemed to relish the atmosphere and the buzz from a big crowd, because Manchester United 45,000 and 45,500 at the game, so there's quite an atmosphere at Old Trafford for this one. And lo and behold, we get a 0-0 at half time, and everybody's thinking, well, they've done well to get this far, 0-0. Let's hope it goes throughout the game. But it doesn't. There's on about 60 minutes, in fact, exactly on 60 minutes, David Hurd scores, and then John Connolly scores, and then Dennis Law, who was there, the centre forward, scores. So it looked like we're onto a thrashing. But you should never give up on Newcastle, because immediately after Law scored, Ron McGarry scored a one for us. And then David Craig scored one of his rare goals for Newcastle. They make it 3-2. So the last 10 minutes was really ding-dong, and they really had a go at this. They didn't get the point. They lost 3-2. But it was an interesting game, and showed sides of Newcastle's fight, which was important. The team, well, you can guess it without me telling you: Marshall, Craig, Clark, Burton, Thompson, Ailey, Suddick, Kettlebur, McGarry, Hilly, and Tommy Knox, as was before. So we now go home to a home game against West Bromwich Albion, and they're not doing too well this particular season so far. They're rattling around below the middle like we are. So everybody thinks, well, let's see if we get something out of this game. Well, unfortunately, we didn't. West Brom were really on song and beat us 3-1, 24,700 at the game. Pop Robson scored our goal. The irony is, within 12 minutes, we get a lead, but then West Brom come back with 2 goals from Clark, and then just after half time, Case scores, so to make it 3-1, and that's where it stayed till the end. Once it got to that, there didn't seem any prospect, and I remember being at the game how disappointed people were that we didn't seem as though we had the skill or the energy to break our way into the game like we should have done. The downside, well, Jimmy Ailey got a bad injury, and Tommy Knox came on as substitute for Jimmy Ailey. The West Brom team had its characters. Of course, at centre forward, it had Jeff Astle, who was the new centre forward, who was knocking everybody about and scoring goals for nothing, particularly with his head. And a attacking midfielder called Brown, who became an England international alongside Astle. But a good. My feelings over the years, we've always seemed to have had some good football games with West Brom, but as on this occasion, not always coming out on the right side, I'm afraid. So we're then looking towards another home game. We've got Burnley at home, and Burnley come with their usual team, which is filled full of Geordies from back to front. So our teams, as read, Marshall, Craig, Clark, and etc. Alan Suddick on the left wing now, and Burnley, Blacklaw, Elder, Miller, Smith, Harris, Todd, O'Neill, Lockhead, Irvin, Ralph Coates, and Willie Morgan. Willie Morgan was someone that just bought from Manchester United. A very dangerous winger, could play on left or right, and be very effective left or right, which is one of the reasons it grinds me when I hear people saying about modern footballers, oh, he's left-footed, he's left this, oh God, I find that. Professional footballers should be able to put that right, but never mind, that's my older fashioned ideas. But in that team of Burnley, you've got Blacklaw, Miller, Smith, Todd, Irvin, Ralph Coates, who's from Ashen. They're all northeasterners, either from north or south of the Tyne, from as north to Ashington and south to Durham and Birtley and Chester Street. They always have a smattering of northeasterners. It's a 1-1 draw. Gordon Harris gives Burnley a 1-0 lead at 20 minutes. Then up pops Ron McGarry in 26 minutes to score the equaliser. 25,400 at the game. It was a good football game. That's my memory of it as being present. And it was one of those, it was a 1-1 draw, but it could have been 2-2, 3-3 because the ball was bobbing around in the penalty area, hitting posts and bars and all sorts of things. But a point at least was something, because Burnley were higher up in the league than we were, and there was some concern that we wouldn't get anything out of the game. So we now have a League Cup match to look forward to, the second round of the League Cup. Well, anybody that's watched this series will know that we haven't done anything in the League Cup yet, and we haven't done anything since, to be honest. But never mind. We've got Leeds United away from home. It's not going to be easy by any means, and certainly it wasn't. And we end up getting knocked out of the League Cup 1-0 by Leeds United, with only 18,000 at the game at Leeds. And the goal scorer, Alan Peacock, was a new centre forward that they acquired from Middlesbrough, of all places, but never mind. But the team had lots of notables in it. Gary Sprake, who most people recognise that name, and Billy Bremner. From a personal point of view, I played against Billy Bremner as a schoolboy. I remember playing for North of England against South of Scotland. He was directly opposite to me. He was outside right and I was left back. And the little blonde so-and-so gave me such a thousand that day, but never mind. Jack Charlton, of course, Norman Hunter. People who know their football history knows that when you say Norman Hunter, the thing you say after that is bites your legs. Norman Hunter bites your legs. He was ferocious tackler, Norman. And of course, a Geordie, a Gateshead lad. Peter Lorimer, who was fantastic winger. Paul Madeley, Alan Peacock. Johnny Giles, a very mercurial Irishman in midfield who could stand the ball on a sixpence, really clever player. And Albert Johansson, a South African winger. Johnny Giles never made himself very popular in the Northeast because he was a hard tackler, but he also had a reputation of being a bit sneaky off the ball and that sort of thing. So anyway, we're out of the League Cup now. That's 1-0 to Leeds. Again, yes. However, I detected with my lot in the Gallagher corner that in some ways, yes, they were disappointed, but in other ways they could see what was coming, and it may be that concentrating on the league was an important thing to do if we were going to stay in the league. And just to have that affirmed, our next league game was away to Nottingham Forest, and we lost 3-0. We got absolutely slaughtered by Nottingham Forest. 21,700 at the game. And the goals by Ian Story-Moore and Joe Baker, the centre forward they got from Arsenal. And they, as I say, they just slaughtered us. The Forest team had its characters. Bob McKinley, Peter Hindley, John Barnwell, who was a Geordie playing in midfield, Frank Wignall, big centre forward, and Joe Baker, who played alongside Frank Wignall in their attack. The team we played was, as red as I keep saying, Marshall, Clark, Craig, Kettleborough, Thompson, Monica. This time we've got on the right wing a young lad called Alderson, who Harvey bought to try and produce better service in the middle of the attack for Bennett and McGarry. So Alderson, Bennett, McGarry, Hilly, and Suddick. Ollie Burton came on as a substitute for Burton, for Bennett, because he got injured, a bad ankle injury, which was one of his problems when he was with us. So a defeat which sadly slips us the wrong end of the table. We're sliding down towards the bottom rather than crawling up towards the top. And the next game is a friendly. What do you believe?
Now, I did laugh because people who watch the show regularly know George sends me the photographs and programs, etc. And I did chuckle when I saw this one. Is it Linfield?
Linfield, yes. Yes. A friendly football match. Well, Ulster week in Newcastle. Well, I'm sure the Irish Centre must have liked that at the time. But, in the middle of a really tough season, to be having friendlies like this, I still question it, but never mind. Linfield, because we've got a good tie with Linfield, because Jackie Milburn by now is their player manager. Had been their player manager. He's moved on by now. So we had this game against Linfield, which we managed to lose 1-0 against Linfield. 18,000 at the game, and as I say, it couldn't have done much for morale to lose 1-0 to Linfield just before we've got an important league match, the home match against Fulham, just to follow a few days later. And so we come to the home match against Fulham, 20,400 at the game. And you can see the concern that's in the supporters by the size of the crowd at St James's. You can read where things are going when you look at the size of the crowd. 20,400 at the game, and we show quite well against Fulham, but make a catastrophic error at the beginning and allow Earl to score in the second minute, and it was a schoolboy error by Ollie Burton of all people, but he thought he was playing it back to Gordon Marshall. Well, he played it straight to Earl's feet and bang into the back of the net it went. So we're 1-0 down and struggling and giving ourselves a mountain to climb. 1-0 at half time, and so it remained until Peter Noble, who was in the team by now, standing in for Keith Kettleborough, and Peter Noble managed to get an equaliser on 80th minute. So we got 1-1, but it still made the last 10 minutes nail biting, because the result of losing this one would have been in the bottom two already at this time of the season, which would have been a disaster in many ways. In Fulham's team, well, the usual characters: George Cohn, who played in the World Cup, Bobby Earl, who played for them, Graham Leggett, the Scottish international winger, Johnny Haynes, across their long-term midfield star, and playing on the left wing, would you believe, a man called Bobby Robson, who we came to know even much better later on. So we got a 1-1, which at least we're not slipping to into the bottom two, but people are still nervous. There's no doubt about that. So we get rid of Fulham, and guess what, Steve?
We play Hearts.
We play Hearts in a friendly match, a challenge match. I mean, really and truly. We don't just do it once; we do it twice. The next one is the inside of the programme from the return game up in Edinburgh. I mean, it just beggars belief that we're struggling in the league and we're still faffing on with these friendlies, and I'm sure we're doing somebody a favour, and somebody thinks they're doing us a favour. But it just looks like a nightmare to me. As it happens, we lost the home game. Yes, we lost the home game 7-2 to Hearts. I mean, what preparation for your league match? And then we went away to and returned the favour up there when we lost 3-2 again. It just a disaster in the middle of a major program, as far as I'm concerned. So our next real game, league game, is Everton, and after that shabozzle with Hearts, everybody thinks, well, God, we're going to get a right pasting here when we go to Everton. This is no friendly. This is the real thing. However, typical Newcastle, when you're not expecting them to do well, they pull it out, and we got a 1-1 draw at Goodison, and from the reports I read, were well in the game. It was a good game. Jimmy Gabriel scored for Everton. Albert Bennett scored for us in the first half on 36 minutes, and it looked like we might hang on to the end. But on the 80th minute, Everton equalised through Jimmy Gabriel, a Scottish midfielder and hard little character. And we came away with a 1-1. But that's a 1-1 that I must confess that very few people on Tyneside thought we would get. We needed it. We needed it where we were in the league. And the team, well, Marshall, now John Cragg's getting a game at right back because David Craig's injured. Clark, Kettleborough, Monka, Eiley, Robson, Bennett, McGarry, Suddick, and Knox. And Everton side has Ray Wilson, the England left back from the World Cup at left back. Brian LeBourne at centre half. Colin Harvey, a North East lad who was a good midfielder for them. And Alan Ball, also from the World Cup team, playing for them now. They'd spent a lot of money buying him from Blackpool before the World Cup. And unusual centre forward for Everton. Everton always like big centre forwards, what we call bustling centre forwards. Well, Alex Young, a Scottish centre forward, was there. They bought him from Hearts, and he did very well for Everton. But quite a different style of centre forward to what we're used to with Everton. So we now go to Arsenal. We got an away game against Arsenal. And the fact that it's London and Arsenal, it means that people are a bit on tenterhooks about this one. They're not sure what's going to come out of this one. Well, they were right to be on tenterhooks because we lost 2-0 to Arsenal. 25,000 at Highbury, which for them isn't a very big crowd. We have we're down 1-0 within 3 minutes, which is never good. And then by half an hour, we were 2-0 down. And that's the way it stayed right at the end of the game. The second half, Newcastle tried, but they didn't bother Arsenal that much, really. The 2-0 result actually flattered us. Arsenal could have gone a lot further ahead if they'd taken their chances, especially as our goalkeeper, Gordon Marshall, was injured, and the goalkeeper ended up being Billy Thompson, the reserve centre-half. So Billy went in goal, but did very well for the last 20 minutes to keep the score 2-0. Other than that, our team was the same. Arsenal, the usual line of personalities in the team. Ian Ewer in the centre-back position. Peter Storey. Geordie Armstrong, the lad from Hebburn, playing in the front line. Inside him was Frank McClintock, who became a well-known player and pundit and manager. And of course, on the other side, George Graham, who became a very important manager for Arsenal and other teams. So a 2-0 loss, not unsurprising to most people up here, but still a bit of a worry because we're now sliding the wrong way towards the bottom of the league rather than the top. The next game's a home game against Manchester City, and we always have decent games against Manchester City. they're not doing particularly well this year, so everybody's hoping that we might pick a point or two up with this game. And they're right to hope, because we do. We beat Manchester City 2-0, and Ron McGarry and Alan Suddick score the goals. But it's not till near the end. 0-0 right up at the 80th minute. And then Ron McGarry scores, and then Alex Suddick scores just before 90 minutes. So a 2-0 win against Manchester City. And everybody heaves a sigh of relief, because it's now pushing up away from the bottom end, where we've been bumping along a bit too closely for most of the season so far. Our team, well, major change was Gordon Marshall, as I mentioned, got injured at Highbury, and Dave Hollins came back into goal. We hadn't seen Dave for a while. Otherwise, the other names are familiar. Craggs, Clark, Montgomery, Thompson, Eiley, Alderson, Bennett, McGarry, Suddick, and Knox. Manchester City's team, of course, had its own personalities. Tony Brook at left back became quite a famous player. On a personal note, our centre half was a lad called George Heslop, who was bought from Newcastle United as a young man. In fact, he was bought while he was in the juniors when I was there, and I knew George Heslop quite well. So it was great to see George getting a game at Manchester City, and he made an impression and stayed in that team for a long time. On the right side of the midfield, they had Johnny Crossan, who they bought from Roker Park, from the Mackhams. Bell, who became a great England midfielder. And on the left wing that day was Mike Summerby, a very pacey and obstinate winger. Always a thorn in the side, Mike Summerby. He kept everybody on their toes. So we're going away now to Blackpool, and with a 2-0 win, and Blackpool's actually bottom of the first division at this moment. So everybody thinks, well, this is 2 points in the bag, surely. Well, we keep forgetting we're Newcastle United, and we're built up to be disappointed. Blackpool beat us 6-0. I mean, after a 2-0 win against Manchester City, we go to the bottom team and lose 6-0. Absolute thrashing. 21,200 at the match. And, Blackpool just tore us apart. Our team, Hollins, Craggs, Clark, etc., was all the same that played against Manchester City. And the Blackpool team had it in a young man whose career was just starting, called Emlyn Hughes, who became a famous England player and a famous Liverpool player. Hugh Fisher, Jimmy Robson at centre forward. Ray Charnley was the star player at the time, and Alan Skirton, who they'd bought from Manchester United. So 6-0, Ray Charnley scored 2, Ian Moyer scored 2, Jimmy Robson and Alan Skirton, they all helped themselves to goals on a day which Newcastle fans clearly wanted to forget, because not only is that win lifted Blackpool off the bottom of the league, it's put us into the bottom 3, which is bad enough. Now, the next game we have is game against Sunderland, and it's at home, and everybody thinks, well, come on, shake yourselves. Surely you can produce something against our old neighbours, our Derby neighbours. 57,600 at the match, and we go in at thinking that we're going to get something out of this. Well, all we got out of this was another thrashing. 3-0, 2-0 by half time, and about 80th minute it became 3-0. George Mulhall, Neil Martin and John O'Hare scored their goals, but they really did give us a run around, and our team was the team we're used to by now, except that Dave Hollins is in goal because of Gordon Marshall's injury. John Craggs, Clark, Montgomery, Thompson, Eiley. Pop Robson's come back in on the right side of the forward line. Ron McGarry. Wyn Davies has just been bought from Bolton. As I said, Harvey chased and chased and chased. Well, eventually he got Wyn Davies for a record fee of over 80,000, and that's the man there. Great character, but he was the one Harvey wanted, and Joe stuck out till he did. But we eventually paid 80,000 for him. I gather when reading the stuff about the transfer, there were what they call these days add-ons, which would have made it nearly 100,000, I think. But 80,000. But on this day, he didn't impact on the Mackems at all. Dave Hilly and Alan Suddick completed our team. The Mackems, well, very predictable. Jimmy Montgomery at goal. Sess Irwin, who, again, schoolboy friend. Len Ashurst, Todd, Kinnell, Harvey, Hurd, O'Hare, Martin, and Jimmy Baxter, who was that just got from Rangers, really talented midfielder, and George Mulhurler, the Scottish left winger. A day to forget is all I'd say. It really was miserable in the Gallagher corner that day, I can assure you. So we get over that debacle, and off we go to an away game at Manchester City, where I think there might be a programme for Manchester City.
There is, yeah.
And having had the series results we had, going to Manchester City, people weren't terribly confident. But however, it was always a place where we always seemed to do reasonably well. We always gave a good account of ourselves. And sure enough, against Manchester City, we did. We came away with a 1-1 draw, which wasn't really expected. And again, another point to lift us out of the bottom three and pushing up towards the middle of the league. Our team was the same as I've been reading out. Hollins, Craggs, Clark, Kettleborough, McGrath's now coming at centre half. Eiley, Robson, Bennett, Davis, Wyn Davies, Suddick, and an appearance by Jeff Allen, who's come back into our thoughts at the moment because his son might well be playing for the team today. Manchester City, virtually the same team that played at St James's Park, with Mike Summerby playing on the wing. I noticed in the chat somebody saying what a good player Mike Summerby was a very dangerous winger. Didn't get to play for England as many times as some people thought, and that includes me, I've got to say. And Colin Bell, of course, who was a brilliant midfielder and played lots of times for England. So we get a 1-1, 26,000 at the game. And as I say, that point's very important because we're stuck in the wrong end of the league, well and truly. Now we go to a home game against Liverpool, with fingers crossed, but that's all we can have is fingers crossed. I think there's 2 action pictures for this one, Steve.
I thought that's what the game was, but I was waiting for you to tell us. So
yeah,
bear with us. Here they are.
Yeah, and that's I think that's Steve Highway with his big sideboards having a shot at our goal, and a good shot at the Gallagher corner, and Wyn Davies having to go climbing well above Tommy Smith and Ron Yates in the centre of the Liverpool defence. Typical Wyn. I mean, always 3 foot higher than anybody else when he was heading the ball. And 37,000 at the game. But sadly, they couldn't inspire us to a win. We lost 2-0 to Liverpool with Ian St John and Hunt scoring the goals. And it was the typical Liverpool team. Lawrence, Lawler, Smith, Tommy Smith, Milne, Yates, Stevenson, Callaghan, England winger, Hunt played in the World Cup, St John, Scottish centre forward, Strong, who they bought from Arsenal, and Peter Thompson on the left wing. Another schoolboy opponent of mine who I played against for the county. Our side has played in the last game with Jeff Allen retaining his spot on the left side of the attack. But a new player comes in. Ian McFall comes in into goal, having just brought him over from Ireland. And making his debut in this match. Wyn Davies playing, of course, as I've just seen in the picture. A good game to watch. Good game of football, and we did give them a game, but sadly the result wasn't good because that puts us right firmly in the bottom two of the division now, and it's an uncomfortable place to be. So we're now off to an away game to West Ham. I think there could be a West Ham programme there, Steve.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and on the back of the performance against Liverpool, people think, well, we should be able to give West Ham a game because they weren't doing terribly well either, even though they had a classy team. So we went with the hope of getting something, but well, we, as usual, our hopes were dashed because we got beat 3-0. 31,000 at the Bowling Ground, and it's interesting. They even those days they were called the Bowling Ground. Now they call it Upton Park, but never mind. That's just me being old-fashioned. Our team, same team: McFall, Craggs, Clark, Burton, Bunker, Eiley, Robson, etc., with Allen's keeping his left-sided attacking role. West Ham, of course, littered with stars. Martin Peters, World Cup winner, eventually. Bobby Moore, Peter Bradbrook, they bought from Chelsea for a lot of money. Ron Boyce, a dangerous forward. Johnny Byrne, the centre forward, very skillful. Jeff Hurst, the hat-trick scorer in the World Cup. And John Sissons on the left side. So that was a good West Ham team, but still disappointing to supporters at Newcastle that we didn't get anywhere near them. We really did get well and truly get beat. So we're now getting anxious because we're stuck near the bottom two. And so we've got a home game against Sheffield Wednesday coming up. Now Sheffield Wednesday are like us. They're bouncing around the bottom of the league. They could do with a lift as well. So we hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get something out of this. Well, we did. We beat Sheffield Wednesday 3-1, 26,800 at the match. People, I was quite surprised at that crowd because having had some really bad results and bumping around the bottom, people were expecting the crowds to die, but they didn't. They kept faith a little bit anyway. And our team was the same, McFall, Craggs, Clark, etc. And Jeff Allen still holding his left-sided in the attack. And with Sheffield Wednesday, one or two characters. Springett, England goalkeeper. Peter Eustace, who I've mentioned before, very intelligent midfielder. Jim McCalliog for the first time that just brought into the team. A very talented Scottish midfielder. Dave Ford, who they bought from us actually, and Wayne Ritchie was another midfielder they had who was very clever. But having clever or not, we beat them 3-1 with Bennett, Robson, and Wyn Davies scoring goals, and Ritchie scoring the goal for Sheffield Wednesday. And we went 2-0 up just before half time with Robson and Davies. Ritchie scored their goal right on half time, and then just before the end, Albert Bennett made it 3-1. So we had a comfortable win, which at least took us off the bottom two. So we're now heading away to Southampton with a bit more confidence than we might have had. So I think there's a Southampton programme, Steve, and we go to Southampton with the same team, Ian McFall, etc., all bolstered by that victory at home against Sheffield Wednesday, and we go to Southampton home. We'll get something. Well, unfortunately, we don't. We get beat 2-0, and 21,400 at the game at the Dell, and Southampton had the list of characters. At fullback, David Webb, who they'd bought from Chelsea for a lot of money. Tony Knapp at centre half, who was a great character. Jimmy Melia, who they bought from Liverpool, who was on his way down. John Sydenham and Terry Payne on the wings of the forward line, and Martin Chivers, a young centre forward, who was starting to make a name for himself, and ended up making an even bigger name for himself at Tottenham Hotspur, of course. And also in that forward line was Ron Davis, the man who Joe Harvey tried to buy as well as Wyn Davis, but he got Wyn instead, and I think we would all be pleased about that, those that were around at the time anyway. Melia and Davies scored their goals. It was 0-0 at half time, and everybody thought we might get a draw, but on the hour, Davies scored, and then 70 minutes, Melia scored, and we were 2-0, and now again sitting very, very uncomfortably near the bottom of the league. In fact, we're actually second bottom at this time. So we go home to a home match against Chelsea, and with trepidation, people go to this game because Chelsea's playing well, and pundits are regarding them as one of the ones that might win the league. However, typical Newcastle, they pull their socks up and we get a 2-2 draw with 32,500 at the game, with Wyn Davis and Pop Robson scoring the goals. Wyn Davis gave us the lead just before half time, and then right on half time, Tommy Baldwin, a Geordie that played for Chelsea, scored an equaliser. And then just after half time, Bobby Tamblyn, another talented player they had, made it 2-1. So it looked like everybody thought, well, this is where we're going to lose this and get right into the bottom of the league. Well, just as before final whistle, Pop Robson scored and made it 2-2. And you could hear the collective sigh of relief in the Gallagher corner when that ball went in. Those of us that were left, of course, because these are still in the days of the 10-minute corner flag, where 10 minutes before the end, the flag went down, and you could see people actively getting out, going home with their bus or whatever. Well, all of those that went home would miss that goal, that's for sure. Anyway, 2-2, and it give us a respite from being right on the bottom of the league. So, and the Chelsea team, well, Bonetti was in goal, England player, McCready, the defender for Scotland, Charlie Cook, that bought from Aberdeen for a lot of money, John Hollins, whose son is now a pundit on the television. They bought Tony Haley from Aston Villa. Bobby Tamblyn. Russ Tamblyn was the actor, wasn't he? Bobby Tamblyn was the midfielder, and Tommy Baldwin, the left winger, who was from the northeast, I think from Gateshead actually, Stu. And I think so. So we get a 2-2 draw out of Chelsea, and everybody thinks, well, wow, at least we're out of the bottom two, which is something. So we now come to another home game, and it's against Aston Villa, and everybody thinks, well, we give them a good game at their own place. Surely we could do the same up here. Well, we didn't. We lost 3-0. Absolutely hopeless we were. We weren't in the game at all. 25,400 at the game, and they just sauntered to the victory. 1-0 at half time through a Bradley goal. Scott and Chatterley about on the hour scored the other two. 3-0, and it was a game I remember vividly. We weren't even in it. It really was desperate game to see. However, more importantly, we're now bumping hard on the bottom three now, and our team hardly changed. McFall, Craig, Clark, Burton, Monka, Eiley, Suddick, Bennett, Davis, Pop Robson, and Jeff Allen, and yet we weren't even in the game. I mean, to say that we threatened them would have been great, but we didn't. We never even threatened them, despite the power of Davis and others. And then it being the Christmas time, that the games are come thick and fast. So we've got another home game against Leeds United. I think there might be the programme there. Yep, that's it. And It's 24th of December, and Leeds are about mid-table. So we're thinking, well, surely we can get a draw at home against Leeds United. Well, we can't, I'm afraid. We lose 2-1, and we lose 2-1. John Craggs gives us a lead just before half-time. A rare goal from John Craggs, right back. O'Grady equalised for them just on the stroke of half-time. Then Albert Johansson, the South African winger, scored an incredible goal. I remember being there. He just got the ball outside their penalty area and flew down the left wing right to our penalty area, and from the edge of our penalty area, didn't even give Willie McFall a chance. It just went bang into the back of the net. So really, really disappointing 2-1 defeat. 29,100 at the game. Our team, same McFall, Craig Clark, etc. Ollie Burton back at the right side of defensive midfield got injured, and a young lad called Graham Winstanley came on, who came from the juniors basically, and who went on to have a great career, but not with Newcastle United. Leeds' team almost identical to the team we played in the league in the League Cup. Sprague, Bell, Rainey, Hunter, Charlton, Bremner, Collins, Bobby Collins, who was that bought from Everton, Johansson, and on the wing again on the opposite side, a young man called Eddie Gray, who became a really good player in the first division and played for Leeds for a long time. Featured very well when they started to play in Europe. Very tricky left winger Scots lad. But we were getting no change out of Leeds. 2-1, we lost to that one. So because it's Christmas and the FA have this idea that they should shouldn't make supporters travel very far over the holidays, so they sent us to Ellen Road to a return match with Leeds United. And the date is 26th of December, which is my birthday. So I'm on my knees praying that we're going to get something out of this match as a birthday present. Well, we did get something out of it. We got a 5-0 thrashing of Leeds United, and it was really just with the bits I've read about it and talked to people at the Gallagher Corner the next game. They were just absolutely depressed at what they saw. Leeds scorers, Cooper, Lorimer 2, Story, and Jack Charlton got a header towards the end from a corner. So we're really, really stuck now in the bottom two. We're filling one of the relegation places. So we're now off on our travels again to Tottenham Hotspur. I think there's a Spurs program there. Yep, that's it. That's us. And we have to say that the reality in life is that nobody on Tyneside was expecting us to get much out of this game after the schmozzle at Leeds. Well, they were right to be like that because we lost 4-0. Mackay, Jimmy Greaves got 2 goals, and Terry Venables scored the 4th one. And it could have been more, is what I read about this game. The Tottenham really did give us a run around. 27,900 at the match. And but interestingly, Joe Harvey's still sticking to his team selection. I mean, with this particular season that I'm talking about, we played, I think it's 46 games. We only used 26 players, which is unusual. Marshall's back in goal now, though, shifting Willie McFall over. And he's bought Dave Elliott from Sunderland to try and bolster the defence from midfield. He's bought John McNamee from Scotland to play at centre-back. And he's shifted Bob Moncur to the left side of defence. And the forward line is Robson, Noble, Davis, Eiley, and Tommy Robson, who is Harvey's bought from Chelsea. Tommy Robson's another local lad, another Gateshead lad, as it happens. And so that's our team. to go to Tottenham. Well, as I say, 4-0. They just took us apart, and Tottenham team had all the stars in that we know: Pat Jennings, Cyril Knowles, Alan Mullery, Terry Venables, Alan Ginzine, Jimmy Greaves. They were a star-studded team and would eventually go on to do star-studded things. So we now, as I say, we really are stuck in the bottom two, and it's uncomfortable, and people are miserable about it, as you can imagine. And of course, the next game, you want to get home and try and recoup things, but the fixtures aren't as friendly as that because they immediately send us away to Burnley. I think there might be a Burnley programme there, Steve. Yep. No, I mean, nobody had very high hopes about this one because we always had a good game with Burnley, home or away. And Burnley were doing a lot better than we were. They're about mid-table. It's not slightly above. But we were really stuck in the bottom two. And but lo and behold, typical Newcastle, when you don't expect it, it happens. And we beat Burnley 2-0 at Turf Moor, 17,300 at the game. And Albert Bennett gives us a lead on 18 minutes. And then on 67 minutes, Pop Robson seals the victory with 2-0. Now, the unusual thing is that the Burnley team is almost identical to the one that played at St James's Park. One or two slight changes, and again, mostly northern people. Right fullback, they have a lad called Dave Merrington, who went on to be a manager stroke coach, and he coached our neighbours down the road for a little while, was manager of Southampton for a while. And so, you know, the 2-0 win at Burnley came as something of a real surprise. And our team, well, people will be able to recite this themselves: Marshall, Burton, Clark, Elliott, McNamee, McGrath, Robson, Bennett, Davis, Ailey, and Tommy Robson. So it could have been a disaster, and it wasn't. We came away with a real sense of uplift, and we came to a home game against Nottingham Forest. Now that victory and the performance at Burnley obviously cheered people up because they're now nearly 38,000 at the next game against Nottingham Forest at home, and so with that sort of crowd behind them, we all hope that Nottingham Forest would succumb to it. I think there's a picture there, Steve. Don't know where it is. Is it the programme?
No. Not for that one, mate. Fulham next away.
Right. Okay. Well, we did hope that we'd get something out of that, and well, we didn't. It was a nil. Well, we did. We got a point. It was a 0-0, and. But that point was important because it kept us out of the bottom two, just. So that was a relief for everybody. At least we weren't hanging on. So we then went to an away game to Coventry City, and Coventry were playing quite well. We're new to the division. Had new facilities at Highfield Road, 35,500 at the game, and so it was a slight trepidation. We went knowing how well Coventry were playing, but lo and behold, Newcastle pulled their socks up for once, and we got a 4-3 win. We beat Coventry City 4-3 with a hat trick from Wyn Davis. Pop Robson scored the fourth one for us, and their goals were scored by Gibson, Rees, and an own goal by John McNamee. So 4-3, 3-2 to them at half time, but we won 4-3, and a nice surprise for a change instead of struggling to get anything out of it. And our team now still fixed with the newcomers of McNamee at centre-half, centre-back, and Wyn Davis playing, etc. The Coventry side had one or two characters in it. George Curtis at full-back became a well-known manager and player for a lot of times, a lot of years. Eddie Machin playing in the midfield was became another great character in football. And another one who became even more of a character, Bobby Gould, who became the manager of Wimbledon, of course, and the crazy gang, as they called them, when Bobby was the manager. So it was a good win. I mean, the fact that it was away was something, but we came back with some points, which lifted off out away from the bottom two. And next we went to Fulham, where I think there's a program. Yep, that's good. And we full of hope after a win at Coventry. Well, that's a dangerous thing to be when you're a Newcastle supporter. Full of hope because it got beat 5-1 of Fulham. What a schmozzle. 21,100 at Craven Cottage. And it was, we made the mistake of scoring first, I think, because we just upset Fulham. And we scored, and then they just went berserk and scored 5, with Clark scoring 3, and Bobby Earl scoring, and Johnny Haynes finishing off at 5-1. It just was a mess, as Tony I can describe it. Apart from the early part of the game where we scored a goal, after that, it was difficult to see two Newcastle players put 2 passes together. It was just awful, and made life very difficult because it shunted us back down to the wrong end of the league. Our team, predictable. Harvey sticks to his guns. The only one thing that did happen is that in the second half, Dave Elliott got injured, and Harvey stuck Ron McGarry in Dave Elliott's place, and they did reasonably well considering that. But 5-1 at Fulham wasn't going to do us any good. And as I say, we're now back struggling at the wrong end at the bottom end of the table. So we go to a home game against Everton, and people are hoping, well, let's hope that they've got all of that out of their system. Well, they hadn't, because we got beat 3-0 off Everton. 31,200 at the game. And our team, predictable. Gordon Marshall's back. He's slotted Ron Guthrie back in at fullback. And he's jobbed John McGrath, brought Billy Thompson in centre-half alongside John McNamee. And the forward line's very predictable. Pop Robson, Bennett, Davis, Hilly and Tommy Knox. But we lose 3-0. We really, another game where we just weren't in it. And I can remember being at the game with this one because I went because I'd heard that Everton were playing a lad called O'Hara on the left wing, who I'd played against when we played in the juniors. And I was keen to see how he performed. Well, they didn't play him actually. So, but the game itself was from a Newcastle point of view was just awful. Everton had the usual stars: Ray Wilson, Alan Ball, Colin Harvey, Jimmy Gabriel, Johnny Morrissey, and Alex Young, this Scottish centre forward who was tearing up trees for Everton after he came from Scotland. They scored 3. Ball scored 1, Morrissey scored 1, and their substitute was a young man called Jimmy Husband, who played for Newcastle Boys and then went to Everton, and he managed to come home and score a goal against us at St James's Park, which I mean, when the third goal went in, you could hear the groan. I'm sure you'd hear the groan from the Gallagher corner down in the Haymarket because it was so bad. And we're now away to Nottingham Forest, and the 4th round of the FA Cup, and we're really, do we want an FA Cup run? Well, we're not going to get one because Forest beat with 3-0, and that was the end of the FA Cup as well. 45,000 at the game, 900, and our team, predictable: Marshall, Burton, Clark, Monker, McNamee, Winstanley, Pop, Robson, Hilly, McGarry, Ailey, and Knox. Another game where we just weren't in it, and a 3-0 loss rather. Frank Wignall, their centre forward, and John Barnwell, and Geordie, of course. Geordie's always score against Newcastle, and Joe Baker, their centre forward, scored the goals, and it really was no surprise because of the way we'd been playing that we got dumped out of the FA Cup by Nottingham Forest, and that was the fourth round, and we then go home to a game against Arsenal, which I know the Gallagher corner faced with some trepidation. It was more with hope than actual belief that we would get something out of this game. Well, as always, they always prove we're wrong, and we beat Arsenal 2-1. Wyn Davis and Dave Hilly scored our goals, and we actually played like a team for the first time that season. In my opinion, we actually played like a team and looked like a team. And there's no doubt that Arsenal felt quite peeved at losing this one because they were starting to push for the top of the league, not rather than the bottom. Hilly and Davis scored for us in the first half, then George Graham scored for them just on the hour. So the last 20 minutes was a bit of a nail biter, to put it mildly. So there we go, and that's a home game against Arsenal. Of course, our next game is an away game at Sunderland. I think there should be a programme there, yeah. And we having got thrashed at home, the feelings were that this wasn't going to be nice either. Well, we ended up with a 0-0 draw, which wasn't expected, it was a 3-0 loss, which was expected, and which matched the 3-0 that they beat us at home. 51,000 at the game at Roker Park, and they were just by far the better team. So we leave that derby match, which now sits us firmly in the bottom two, and our next match is against Manchester United at home, and nobody really expecting anything out of this one. And there's George Best and Willie McFall in an action picture, Dennis Law in the background, and they really give a go to this one. And then we got a 0-0 draw, which was totally unexpected. 39,000 just about at the game. I remember going to this game because I wanted to see the likes of Best and Law and people who were outstanding at the time. And so we got a 0-0 at the end, which was great for us from the league position. We're now still bumping along the bottom three, but at least we're out of the bottom two, and everybody's looking a lot happier. So we get rid of Manchester United and their stars. I mean, the team, Manchester United team, then was Stepney, Bill Fuchs, Dave Sadler, Bobby Noble, Tony Dunn, John Aston, Paddy Crerand, Nobby Stiles, George Best, Bobby Charlton, and Dennis Law. Paddy Crerand is somebody much later in my life I got to know quite well. And there's a story in there which when I've got a bit more time, I'll tell you. So, but anyway, 0-0 was more than we'd hoped for. And we had a run of home games now. We've now got Blackpool at home, and Blackpool are sitting rock bottom, even though they beat us 6-0 away from home. But where everybody's wondering, well, are they going to do it again? Well, they didn't. We beat them 2-1 with Pop Robson scoring both the goals, 30,500 at the game. And our team, Marshall, Craig, Clark, Elliott, McNamee, Ailey, Bennett, Noble, Davis, Hilly, Pop Robson. Harvey's so loyal to the people he picks. And Blackpool got a strong team in, except they have a debut for Blackpool of a young man called Alan Suddick. Because the couple of days before this game, Joe Harvey decides to sell Alan Suddick for £60,000 to Blackpool. and he does that to buy other players to shore up the defence and this sort of thing. Joe Harvey's his own man. I mean, there were lots of rumours about the directors trying to interfere with transfers and team selection. Well, there was never any evidence of that because he used to do what he wanted to do. And that was one of the things he did. Alan Suddick was a big fan's favourite. And yet, 2 days before we play Blackpool, he's transferred to them. And people are thinking, well, what the hell is that about? Well, what it's about is Joe Harvey trying to balance the books, basically. He bought a lot of people like McNamee and Elliott and Wyn Davis and so on. So he's now recruiting the funds, but not a one which was entirely popular with the Gallagher corner, I will show you. So we're now at home to Stoke City, and they're not doing too good. So everybody thinks, well, surely this will help us a little bit. Well, it did. We beat Stoke 3-1. And the star of the show was Peter Noble, who had his best game, in my opinion, for Newcastle United. Scored 2 of the goals, and John McNamee got a header from a corner to score his first goal for Newcastle United. And Stoke had Harry Burrows in the forward line scoring, and he was there. Harry Burrows was long time player for Stoke and did well for Stoke. So we now get a we're not well away, but we're about fourth bottom now. We're certainly not second or third bottom, and we away to Stoke City. Next, we're away to Chelsea. There should be a Chelsea programme, I think, so we now go to Stamford Bridge, and 26,300 at the game. But Chelsea beat us 2-1. Tommy Baldwin and Bobby Tamblyn scoring the goals. Peter Noble scoring ours. And our team, very predictable. The same team's been playing most of the time. Their team, predictable also. Peter Bonetti, the England goalkeeper, was in their goal. And Ron Harris was their right fullback. Chopper Harris, he got the name of because he was a fierce tackler. There were those that would argue not a very clean tackler either. Chopper Harris was playing for them. Eddie McCready, John Hollins, Tony Haley, Bobby Tamblyn, and Tommy Baldwin on the left wing. So 2-1 loss at Chelsea, which I have to say most people on Tyneside didn't think that was too bad in the circumstances. It didn't make my position much worse, but it wasn't brilliant. So next we're off to Stoke. We've got another away game at Stoke. And having done well against Stoke, there's optimism on Tyneside that we might get something out of this game. Well, their optimism is well founded because we beat them 1-0, 17,800 at the game. Pop Robson on 41 minutes scores the goal that matters. And although it was just 1-0, Stoke, read about this game, we're never actually in the game. It was us. It was 1-0. It could have been 2 or 3 if we took the chances that we'd created. Most of those chances, by the way, were from knockdowns by Wyn Davis, who was putting it at people's feet and they just couldn't take advantage of it. So 1-0 at Stoke was huge sigh of relief because we're now firmly fourth bottom, not second or third bottom, or fourth bottom out of the league. And we now go home to a game against Leicester City, where everybody thinks, well, they're not doing well either. We'd get something, and we did. We beat Leicester 1-0. Dave Hilly scores the goal. 35,183 at the match, and it was a good game. I remember a lot of people going to see Gordon Banks because of his heroics in the World Cup. And interestingly, on the right wing for Leicester was a young man, Scots lad called Jackie Sinclair, who we were to get to know in a couple of seasons' time for his exploits in the Fairs Cup for us. But that was Jackie Sinclair. So a good 1-0 home win against Leicester. Cements were away from the bottom of the league at least. And next one is an away game to Liverpool. We very few people think we're going to get anything out of this game. And they're right. We lose 3-1. Hunt scores 2, Callaghan the third one, and Wyn Davies scores our consolation just before the end. 44,800 at the game. We lost 3-1, but by all accounts, a good game. They didn't lie down and die. They actually give it a go and try to get something out of it. But unfortunately, Liverpool were just too good at the time, and we're basically heading towards the Championship, which is why they were so good. Next game is an away game at Sheffield Wednesday, and it's how can I say, a one where we should get something because they're not much better than us. They're hovering around us, but the trouble is that knowing us, we get our hopes built up only to be dashed down. Well, we didn't get dashed down this time. They went away and they got a 0-0 draw, 25,000 at the game. And the usual team went on our behalf with Marshall, Craig, Clark, Elliott, McNamee, Haley, Bennett, Noble, Davis, Hilly, and Pop Robson. Sheffield Wednesday's team was expected to have Ron Springett in goal, Don Mexon, who became quite a famous manager. Jim McCalliog was playing with them by then. David Ford, who they got from us, was in the forward line. But we got a good 0-0, and it was, from what I can read about this game, it was one of those 0-0s which was reasonably enjoyable because both teams had chances to make it a score of it, but they didn't. But it still made it exciting. So we're now heading home to a home game against West Ham United. And we're now at a stage where the other results haven't entirely gone forward. We need some wins to stay in this league. There's no doubt about it. So we play West Ham, and with their all star-studded team, you're never sure what you're going to get. Well, we beat them 1-0, and the own goal came from Bobby Moore of all people. But he was, I have to say, my memory is he was frightened into it by Wyn Davies. There was a high ball, and he was either going to get it or Wyn Davies was going to get it. And he got it, but unfortunately it went the wrong way and it went into the bottom corner of their net instead of up the field. So we got 2 points out of that game. That very few people, I think, expected to get 2 points. 38,800 at the game, and our team unchanged from the previous game. And with West Ham, as I say, their stars Bobby Moore, Martin Peters, and left-sided midfield, a young man called Harry Redknapp makes an appearance, would you believe? Roy Boyd, Jeff Hurst, and Peter Bradbrook, all stars at the time, and for some time afterwards. So we're now got another home game against Southampton, and everybody's wants this to be a win. And this shows how anxious we are. 43,000 at this game. Clearly the Gallagher corner wants to cheer them on to get them home. Well, they did. 3-1 win, which is just what we needed, with Davies, Robson and Noble scoring the goals. And Martin Chivers, their their young gun centre forward who were soon to shout at Spurs getting their consolation. We're now away to Leicester City. I think there might be a programme there, Steve. Yep, and hoping that we might get something at this one. Well, we didn't. We lost 4-2. And they frankly, Leicester played incredible football in this game. We scored from Davis and Noble, but they scored with Sharkey getting 2. Own goal from McMenemy, and Michael Stringfellow scored their 4th one. Only 13,900 at the game at Leicester. Leicester weren't a team that attracted big crowds in those days. And their team was like the team we just played at St James's Park with Jackie Sinclair on the right side of their attack. Our team, exactly as before, Gordon Marshall, etc. We're now going to away game at West Brom, and we want a point at least out of this game. And well, we didn't get a point. We got beat 6-1, and everybody thought, well, that's it. That's the end of that. Noble scored our consolation goal right at the end. Foggo Brown got a hat trick. Williams and Clark for West Brom. Give us a real 1,000. That's Jeff Astle, the West Brom centre forward, he's as I say, great centre forward, head of a ball. But of course now people will know that he's part of the move to look at how heading might impact on dementia. And would you believe, we've just by the skin of our teeth saved ourselves from going down, but we'll go and play 2 friendlies, one at Bournemouth and one at Chelmsford City. I couldn't even find out why we played them ones, but we did. There's other things, pictures on there I'll talk about in a minute, Steve. The league, we finished 3rd from bottom, 29 points, 21 points and 29 points, Blackpool and Villa, and we had 33. However, 36 points take you up to nearly the middle of the league. Very close at that time. But more importantly for us, 39 goals for in 42 games. I mean, you're not going to win many prizes with that sort of goal scoring. And a goal difference, which is the worst since 1913 for Newcastle United. I mean, just couldn't get any worse, could it? And to finish off, the next pictures are this is where the supporters club were proud. They decided and went and asked the club, why didn't Jackie Milburn get a testimonial? And they met a blank wall. Nobody would answer. But eventually, old McKeague told them, said, well, we couldn't give him a testimonial because we received a fee for him. Well, everybody thought that Jackie went on a free transfer to Linfield. Well, he didn't. They got £10,000 plus Jimmy Wilson, Linfield's little winger, who they thought was the next George Best. We accepted that for Jackie's transfer. So the club couldn't give him a testimonial. So the club, the supporters club, organised this testimonial for Jackie Milburn. And it was incredible. 2 games. The first one was with old hands, playing at 2 20-minute halves, and then a Jackie Milburn's 11 against an international 11. And look at the names: Pushkas, Bobby Charlton, George Eastham, Alan Suddick, Nobby Stays, Jack Charlton, Paddy Crerand. I mean, just incredible. And 46,000 at the game. And it was played in the most torrential rain. And that's the the scrapbook from inside the programme. I only put that in because Ken McKenzie, the old journal writer, put at the top. Can you put that back on, Steve, please? Jackie Milburn turned soccer fields into strips of golden memories. Well, I think that's a lovely tribute to Jackie Milburn by Ken McKenzie. And anybody that's seen him play knows that that's true. Then that's Jackie in the treatment room with Alec Much, the physiotherapist, who I got to know quite well because of my injury. And I spent a lot of time on that treatment table, I can tell you. But Alex, like others, couldn't help me, but he was obviously helping Jackie there. And then we move on. And then the same year, Jackie gets This Is Your Life with Eamon Andrews on the telly. And there's Jackie with his family and some of his former teammates. And with his... I'm not sure what poor Laura thinks is going to happen, but she's looking terribly concerned there. And there's Jackie with his two cousins, Jackie Charlton and Bobby Charlton. Now, I'm reliably informed that after, in the green room after that, This Is Your Life, was probably the last time that two Charltons spoke to each other civilly, because they were almost all the time after that. And that's Jackie saying... Eamon saying This Is Your Life. And there's a picture I like because two of my heroes, Kevin Keegan, Jackie Milburn, on the same picture, which is great. So 66, 67 guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. But we just did it by the skin of our teeth, I can tell you.
We did, and I've just dug this up. Look at the faces on there with me.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
And there's Win Davey there, who we've been speaking about.
Yeah,
Albert Stubbins.
Yeah,
and have Boots Will Travels on there at the end.
Vic Keeble in the middle there. Yeah,
Vic
lovely.
Keeble.
Yeah, Albert. I think I've told you before, Steve. Albert Stubbins was a school friend of my father-in-law, and whenever he was in the Northeast, he used to come and see Jimmy the Joiner, as we call my father-in-law, and he was always very nice man, Albert Stubbins. Yeah, that's fantastic, Steve. What a picture.
He would, but we better go and get some lunch because we're going to do Match Day Live at 2 o'clock.
We are indeed.
A big shout out to Blowhole, who finally launched their brewery this week, Blowhole Brewery. You can find them on the internet. We'll be adding them to our advertising slot in due course. But the Geordie Juice is out now, and according to those who drink beer, it tastes very, very nice indeed. But I will play out with the ads. We will be back next week with George again, and I'll see you at 2 o'clock, George. Take care.
Okay, see you, Steve.
Take care,
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Big thank you to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273, or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or give them a call on 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up underneath the video to like it. It does us a big favour. And click share to share to your social media, such as Facebook and Twitter. Maybe added to a Newcastle United group. You can also make a donation just hit the thanks button underneath if you're enjoying the content and you want to share something with me or the people on the channel. And you can also click join, which means that you commit to maybe a monthly membership, or you can become a cult member. How do you do that? Well, you go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and you search for membership. What do you get for your £25 one-off payment? You get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. We also have a smart code. There you go, the QR code there. If you put your smartphone over it, it'll take you straight to the website, and you can get involved in a cult membership pack today. We also give you something for nothing. If you subscribe to the show, then email john@nufcmatters.com and get your free car window sticker now. We also support the food bank on here. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is the matchday bucket website. You just need to go there and you can make a virtual donation. Don't forget, during the season on match days, we're at the Dog and Parrot with Supermac, pre-match and post-match. And we're at Pumphrey's, John Anderson and John Gibson, pre-match only. Also got the Takeover anniversary party coming up at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £2 on the door, and you can get your tickets for that from nufcmatters.com. And Supermac will be at the Terrace Club in Seaton Delaval, Friday the 11th of November. Tickets are a tenner, table is £650, and you can get those tickets from 0191 237 0133.